the cats are losing their shit. They're gonna be acting fucking nuts. They've been doing cloak and dagger shit all night. And you think it's done, but it's not. The hunt is on. So you're gonna hear things ruckus. Bring the fucking ruckus in the background randomly. I apologize for that. That's how it is, though. I have a noise gate on, but that doesn't mean shit. These males and females will tussle. It's kind of like West Side Story, you know. Any which way, this is episode 10 of Fistful of Fuckery. Was that good enough? Okay. A little back. Calm it down a little more. Fistful of Fuckery. Episode 10, season 3. And still the general discussion is, will we have a season 4? And that is a question. I'm leaning towards yes, but again, data. Share this show if you're interested in this show. I can end it in 3, and I've gotten a lot set. And a lot of this stuff is being refined. There's discussions about a couple of items I want to do. I also want to finish up volume 2 of my book. Yeah, I have a book, but it's volume 2, but it's really just a whole fucking book. I just ended it on a really good point. Volume 1, I had several readers checking it out and getting a lot of feedback over the years. So I just put it out as such a few years back. But I want to do volume 2. This episode is actually going to address something major. It's either loserdom or losership. One of the two. And those might be bad fucking names. Because not necessarily being humble. And that's why I want to address it. It's something that's kind of weirdly liberating that you don't realize is a thing. And again, this is some weird origin pieces because you're going to be hearing shit about growing up. Because that's how things are, right? Yeah. But before that, let's talk about, let's keep it light at first because I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to address some of the politics and bullshit that's going on in the world right now. Because I just think it's fucking miserable. And apparently it is helping some people. Because I get weird feedback from this program randomly. There's some clarity I'm going to do from the last episode because I might have done that sideways. Really tired, kind of had to rush through it. Alan Moyle was the last episode. I'll touch on that. But first of all, so I clearly read comics. About to switch back to trade paperbacks because I really want to go into the larger, older books. And I'm not looking to spend, I'm not a collector. It's not a thing. It happens by proxy, I guess, sometimes. I don't know, I trade things. So, I like reading. I like the artwork. I like illustrations and all that shit. Clearly, if you haven't figured that out by now, you're fucking late. So, one cool thing. So somebody asked me, hey, what's the best Punisher story? Like, if I haven't read anything from the Punisher. And I'm like, welcome back, Frank. Person's like, what's that? It is 12 issues of fucking greatness. It's loosely what the second movie was based on, but it was such fucking a big fucking mess. So my reference point ended up coming out as a portable. And here's the funny thing. So I'm aware that there is Gen Xers that had a tendency to overlook comics after a certain point. I know there was a shift in comics in the 90s because big guns, big tits, all that fucking crazy ass fucking one-man army. Only one man could take down the whole fucking 80,000 people. He's a walking genocide, right? So this is a thing in the late 80s because propaganda and bullshit. It's the difference between like First Blood and any other Rambo movie up until 3? No, 4. 4 was actually decent. So you're like, what the fuck just happened? This is reflected. And if you're wondering what the nonsense you hear nowadays with, these fucking alpha males and all that shit, it really is based on that. It's like this really weird, fucked up, like inject piece, hate everything and fucking miserable, weird wind tunnel bullshit that existed. And the problem is, I'm aware of it. I watched it form. I watched some of them. It wasn't like, but I always thought they were hokey and like weird. Some of them were good. Like RoboCop was dope, but RoboCop's weirdly a fucking satire, and you get that feeling when you're watching it. I watch that thing a lot. So anyway, this situation, whole Punisher piece, there's several movies. I don't know if you know this. I'm going to tell you. So the first one is with Dolph Lundgren, and it's actually pretty good. It has a lot of a real B feel to it, but he does a good job with the character. The second one is just a tragic fucking mess. And a lot of it is because Ennis's story in Welcome Back, Frank, is so fucking good. But the movie can't track the flow. And I've seen Thomas Jane in many other things. I just didn't think he was that good of a Punisher. And I really have a hard time watching Travolta do a lot of different things. Like there's certain things he's done, that's on point. Other things I'm like, God, it's fucking like hard to watch, right? Highly cringeworthy, right? So that movie is kind of like a tragic mess, whereas Punisher, what is it? War Journal or War Zone is with Ray Stevens. He looks like the Punisher in that movie, but the version of Jigsaw, which is I think the modern problem with the current run of the miniseries by Percy, is that he's fucking weird and hokey and just silly and as fuck. Here's what's weird. In the show, The Punisher, that was on Netflix but now back on Disney pulled it back in, the John Bernthal run, the way they're constructing Jigsaw is so interesting. And the current run of, I don't know if I'm giving it away, The Punisher is post another Red Band story. I'm not going to tell you any of it. Read it if you're really into The Punisher. Wilson Fisk definitely fucks his shit completely up. And Jigsaw is back. But I'm like, do we really want him back? Especially that version of him. Anyway, so a fella said, hey, what's the best book? I'm like, it's actually Punisher, Welcome Back, Frank. That will get you on the whole Ennis run, which is completely fucking insane. Right? You get the Russian, you get the full story, the full version of that. So if you've actually seen the second movie and you're like, I really like the second movie, what are you talking about? It's not that good. But the book is dope. So pick up a copy. And here's what's really interesting. I talked to this dude like about a week or two ago about it, and all of a sudden they released it on an interesting format. Now, I don't know if you know this, so a lot of you guys kind of fell off reading comics and all that stuff at some point in time. You're like, I don't know where to jump back on. And I get that because you're your age now, and I don't really want to spend that much money. Marvel kind of followed DC's lead. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure which one started the process first. I want to say it was DC. The first ones I seen were DC. So DC created this DC Compact Comics. So you get like Court of Owls, All-Star Superman, Watchmen. Watchmen is definitely a hard pickup. Batman, Court of Owls is one of those things like if you really want to get into the current modern Batman lore, have at it. They're running about $10 a pop. No shit. Like that's the whole thing. Now you can get like a Watchmen absolute version, not the absolute universe, but absolute version for like $100, sometimes even cheaper, like maybe 70, 65, 70. And the difference between that and this version is that is a full, large-scale version with script and sketches and all. Like it's a heavy dive into everything Watchmen. So it's definitely fan-based, right? Whereas the portable, if somebody has never read Watchmen and they watch the movie and they watch the sequel, and they're kind of confused, like how squids. Here's the book for you. So they released it, and they run about $10, and they kept going and going and going with them. So there's a lot of really cool shit as just simple trade paperbacks. If you wanted to get your kids involved in comics, right? First of all, actually, I don't know now, because modern cartoons are pretty good. We just had a really epic period of time from Chowder to the regular show to up until Amazing World of Gumball, which is something I'll definitely want to cover in a future episode. They just elevated everything, and a lot of that, is a lot of the early Cartoon Network creators and Adult Swim. So they allowed that ability to flexibility, and they got kids into a lot of interesting shit because they did elevate to a degree that hadn't been done before. Amazing World of Gumball is as crazy and as funny and intellectually stimulating as like Looney Tunes or some of the really clever episodes of Tom and Jerry or MGM stuff earlier on. How they just kind of write to adults and kids just fall in line more or less. And I like that, And the fact that they poke fun at a lot of things that needed to be definitely shot down, the whole Mad Magazine history, the basically take a nod from that. So anyway, so this exists in DC. DC is called DC Compact Series. But Marvel has another one too, and theirs run about 15. So Marvel released Welcome Back, Frank, this past week for $15. So you guys should get a smaller copy of it. I had it was hard to find for a period of time because it wasn't in circulation, it was out of print. So I ended up getting one at a comic show for I think $7, $5. But it was used. The shit's beat the hell out of it. But I let people borrow stuff all the time when it comes to that. Because why? Why not? I mean, if you've never read this stuff and you're like, well, I don't know where all this connects, and movies are kind of I'm sorry, the trailers that come out for movies right now are big fucking piles of shit. There's some films here and there I'm definitely interested in, but some of them just like, God, I guess Damon was right with the whole, Matt Damon was right with the whole, they just want you to repeat the plot every so often because people cannot get off their phones like junkies. So those two things I want to tell you about, that was the first thing right off the top of my head. The other thing is there's a comics, the magazine. Issue 1 came out this week. They're running about $3 a pop. And it's a small zine about comics. And I thought that was really cool. I mean, the big one back in the day was Wizard. And it ran, how many issues did Wizard run? Did it go over 100? It ran it had a long distance. Wizard magazine was responsible for you speculating about roles and people and getting really hyped up about films, like the transition to film, right? It got you really hyped up about different artists and and when the indie comic industry blew the fuck up, like when Scott the Disposable Hero, Image Comics, all these books that just kind of coming out of the woodwork, like Sin City, like they were just a great magazine to cover. And there was a period of time they used to have price guides with them too, but then that kind of faded out. Comic Value Monthly kind of went that way, and that was actually probably one of the better price guides back in the day. Anyway, which way, this is a new magazine that came out, definitely fan based. The main cover story in it is Absolute Batman, so give it a try. I mean, it's $3. Most time magazines are running you anywhere from $8 to $15, sometimes $20. Special prints, special proclivity, special subculture shit. Depends on what you're into. Some run twice, 6 issues a year, sometimes 10 issues a year, 8 issues a year. Not all of them run 12. So there's something to consider. So that's the light trend I'm going to come up with. So what are you looking at? The downer to all this. So again, I'm going to reiterate. Marvel Premiere, the $15, you can ask. They're in the stores, in the bookstores and whatnot. They're portable, easy to hold editions to kind of flip through. It's like when the paperback books came out for novels. There you go. And DC Compact, that's it too. So Skydance Board is buying Warner's, right? And that might be a fucking nightmare, right? Mainly because the wealthy want a large megaphone. And the film industry has been eating shit for quite some time. Overall, there is interesting things going on, and I'm hoping it's a pendulum switch when it comes to film. Just like music. I'm hoping something shifts gears, and that's something I will get into at some other point in time. But that is, I'm just hoping James Gunn is going to be able to do his version of DC Universe. Because Lanterns trailer came out and that looks what I expected it to look like. The guy they selected for Hal Jordan, on point. Guy selected for Jon Stewart, on point. I'm like, okay, I'm looking for that. Right? I'm looking forward to Supergirl. So, yeah. Not sure how much more we have going in that. And like the going joke is like, well, I guess Batman will be choking out homeless people now. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm not that cynical. I know the unplug mechanism and what they want, and if it's paid for, and the whore will give it the money and give them the mouth, the price, there you go. I was kind of hoping for the Netflix thing. And there's enough great independent stuff that exists that even if I decide to still keep reading, it would probably be out of the DC canon and back into indie comics. Marvel, the problem with reading Marvel comics is they keep ending. And they decide to drop stories when I don't give a fuck about the large story at all. Don't care. Oh, we're going to do another Apocalypse. I don't give a fuck. I was just reading a really good run of X-Men. What the fuck did you just do? And they do that. And they, instead of like, we want more number ones because number ones will sell. And you're right. And you know what? Number 37s will sell too when you switch out the artists and the writers. Why? Because historically, that's what happens. But that's not what's been happening. I mean, granted, I do have like 25, 30 issue runs in one volume of runs from back in the day. And recently, actually, one of the most Tony Stark stories was, 2 volumes back. The last volume was him, what's the name of that? Roxxon. Roxxon War. Like that wasn't not bad. The problem with it is getting the single issues because they were all fucked up. So I got the trade paperback. So it is what it is. I only had like 2 issues at first. Right? So anyway, it really, the mainstream stuff, the 2 mainstream companies, like one's doing really well right now, and the other one just stops and then restarts again. Perfect example of this is Storm. If you haven't read any issues of Storm, I would go back to read, I think it's 14, 13 issues. And here's what's weird. They decided to restart the number, even though the stories, you require the other issues to read it to understand the current story. Like, it's fucking weird, but it's well written. It is a dope fucking story. I mean, becoming a herald for eternity, like, it is a crazy fucking story. But it's really good. And the character kind of flourishes really well to the point as well. I mean, I know at some point in time you're going to put her back in the X-Men, I guess. I don't really want to see it. So it is what it is. I think they did a real good job cutting around from that situation. But it's just weird. Again, the numbering thing is just a very strange thing. So that's why I'm going to wrap this part up with the idea of getting trade paperbacks and some of them coming out really cheap. At some point in time, that will be released to hopefully be released as a larger volume to collect the whole story. Because I don't understand why you'd stop a number sequence and then restart it again when most of the books you didn't do that with. Very strange. Again, that whole management handling is just awkward. When they have things going in the right direction, it's like they don't know how to build off. And it's not like this is their incompetence. Like, it is hard to get to like 25 issues and figure out where to go to 50 sometimes, but usually it's a writer-artist palette change at some point. So, I ran We're killing kids now. I guess that's the thing we do. You know what probably should have given it away is the fact that when school shootings happen, it becomes very gray. Most tragic, fucked up thing ever. When we're hearing about tons of child rape, molestation, and abduction, we're told not to pay attention to that. It's funny because I go on this and I think to myself, I'm like, this is the forbidden fruit that powerful people keep fucking with. And it makes you really look at, especially if you're Gen X, really look at all the abductions and kids in milk cartons and all that fucking nonsense from back in the day. I'm saying nonsense because clearly there's an industry in this. You know, we had a churches still tying to fucking vampiric people, sucking the blood of innocent kids out of them. That's interesting shit, right? And now we just randomly just bomb bottom line oil and control thereof. You know why? Because this already happened. That's what's interesting about everything that's going on right now. It's just this is the brute force imperial. Like, you know what? I got an idea. I think we should just show off fascism full scale. Right? That's what's happening right now. Why I say this? Because Brennan came on national television saying, yeah, we overthrew Iran back in the day. We put the power structure that's in play back in the day. We did it more savvy. We like did this whole like fucking cloak and dagger, weird shit, right? That's what we did. I mean, we invented the supply chain. We blinded most of the Americans with this really weird bottleneck of the economy that we ran for, 30 years? Maybe more than that? Now they're trying to figure out how to break the economy. And economists, one of the things they can genuinely want about, like what we're doing right now could have a profound downfall. Yeah, that's the thing, right? And perpetuating and annexing land that's not us, we're inside the beast in that aspect. Here's what's weird. Congress is doing nothing. Wanna know why? Because you have millionaires, billionaires, and people sitting in Congress. And that should have been a big indicator. Once people that are really wealthy grabbing positions of power, yeah, that should have been a big indicator. So they're going to be choked out in general. This is one of those examples that showed the corporatist entity of both parties. It's a thing that's been championed against since the 90s, maybe even earlier than that, but definitely in the 90s is the first time I ever heard of it, right? And, you know, a lot of critique from the music was this weird corporate agenda. And then guess what? They choked them out. They said, you know what, 98, we're going to change all this stuff and have you listen to a bunch of kids. The Mall Rat Tour, right? So this has already happened, right? This whole weird, like, let's dominate this situation. Like, somebody's like asked me a few days ago about Cuba. I'm like, yeah, we've had an embargo on them for fucking a ridiculous amount of years. Overstretching it. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. None of this surprises me. It's tragic. It's fucking horrifying, but none of it surprises me. Why? Because it's already been done. They just were savvier about it. I mean, whatever you want to say about Noam Chomsky right now, but if you read Manufacturing Consent, what they cover in that book is fucking crazy. Right? They were already massaging the press and the media. This already happened. Shit, Network was written as a satire. And when you watch Network and you watch Fox, and actually most weird television shows, news shows, they emulated the parody. That's what the satire, I should say battery. Satire. This was a thing. And then I listened to people's nonsense come out of their fucking mouths trying to rationalize doing this. And then I'm listening to the press, I'm like, listen, wow, they're kind of legitimizing it to a certain degree, all across the board. So that's ugly. But here's what's weird. Really wealthy people that hide their names want that. If they didn't want it, it wouldn't have happened. Again, again, I'm saying this again. Oil fields we have domestically capped off. Somebody told me that. Yeah, that's the thing. I've heard about it. And one dude's like, I worked there. I'm like, interesting. So we're now. Here's this funny thing. I'm not necessarily saying the electric car was the way to go, right? Shorter distances within the city commuter. Yeah, maybe. We don't have the bandwidth nor the power structure to lay down for that. We are not in that world, because if we were in that world, that means the citizen would be saying, we want this. You have to give us this because this is what we want. But that's not what's happening right now. We have a subdivision, right? Above the Constitution is the people, always. But if the people are scattered like motherfuckers, like a big turd thrown against a wall, and you're trying to find everything to put together, it's not happening. And this is by design. That's what's sad about it. This is by design. We get injected heavy propaganda all the time. Shit, if you want to critique me, okay. You know? But guess what? I don't financially get anything from this. I'm just sick of watching it. You know? Forecasting this stuff to happen this way is a thing. Because you could already fucking see it. It doesn't require a genius to figure this shit out. This already happened. This is just a brute force. We need to make sure this happen. That means there's a gain in a thought, in a process, and a goal. That automatically puts it in line with an agenda. But it's an agenda that's old. Right? Like, the more people talk about this on this band, with, like, whatever social media structure exists, and notoriety they get, the quicker they're gonna attack this, right? It's the truth. It's the way it is. And it's fucked up and ugly. Because no matter what's getting done, our names are tied to it. Me, you, guy down the street, woman in Ohio, man in Rhode Island. Yeah. So, think about that idea. They're not buying shit media up and fucking it up and breaking it down and giving you bullshit for no reason. I mean, they will give you anything to distract you. I mean, you're hearing in the news, in the mainstream news, the idea of pedophilia as every, I'm just going to go to this island, Back in the 80s, Beastie Boys critique Jimmy Page. I like Jimmy Page as guitarist, but yeah, I got to understand the critique. And he did it in a lyric on the song, Licensed to Ill. The girlies I like are underage. And he's an outlier at the time. You're thinking, everybody's not like this is not a thing. And somebody will argue, way back in the day. Yeah, way back in the day before we started evolving. Yeah, I know. Here's what's funny. I'm going to remind you this again. Before I go on to the brief thing, right? Social Darwinism isn't real. It's a construct created by wealthy people. Through behavior modification programs, they think to themselves, well, what can we do to create this problem? I'll walk you through this thing again. Civil rights got passed in the 60s, right? Should have been passed in the 50s, 40s, maybe even earlier than that. But, okay, the bitterness of it gets passed. But by that point in time, most multinational corporations are now making outsourcing to jobs in other countries. Richard Nixon puts us in bed with China and gives China the largest engine in the fucking world. They go from communist to communist with a capitalist engine that runs amok. All corporations tied to it are happy as fuck. I remember reading a letter from Rose Odd. And it was a weird letter because I'm thinking to myself, I was working in a store at the time, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, why do I feel a certain kind of way? Because this is written a certain kind of way. Like, we have to give up the ghost and actually have to go overseas for our manufacturing because all these companies are undercutting us. Survival of the fittest is a fake statement. It's not tied to Darwinism. It's tied to this fucked up construct called social Darwinism. So these businesses fuck up these other businesses by undercutting them so much that they can't make profit. That's fucked up. Converse was one of the last things way back in the day, but I think Nike owns Converse now, as far as I know they do. So this is a thing that happened during the course of me growing up. I remember this being a big deal. I remember the whole American-made, but that died. That concept, they literally did an about-face by the end of the 80s. And I remember thinking to myself, this is fucked up because they bottlenecked the employment. Because now you have a bunch of people on an even keel, which should have been done from when every man, woman created equal, right? But say man, obviously that was the thing. Voting rights, all this other stuff, should have been done, right? That shouldn't even been thought, but this is where the game comes into play. So they bottlenecked the 70s, created the biggest racism, sexism thing, right? Second wave feminism is fucking hated against, what they view as minorities and all this other stuff. Fucking forgetting the fact that America's a large-ass fucking melting pot. And it has been so since Europeans came over to the New World, right? So what's interesting is by bottlenecking and by deregulating certain things, they created this fucked up economy that we ran from the early 70s up until the major meltdown in 2009. It was just a hard pendulum, constantly attacking the middle class. Over and over again. I've watched this happen. I watched a city decline. I watched neighborhoods decline. I grew up with this. This is a thing. And then when I talk to people about it from that era, they act like everything's hunky-dory. Or they seem to co-sign to a lot of this stuff, not really thinking about that. And maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe because they're in their own little bubble, their own little cocoon, because of whatever reasons. Family, friends, they grind, which is probably the primary thing. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. But you really have to, there is a point of responsibility when things accelerate so quickly that we got to consider the idea. Right? The one notion I'm going to end this with, I'm going to go on to the Alan Moyle thing, is that we now have to start thinking about society post its downfall. Because at this level, what's going to take place could be profoundly devastating. And once it hits, it's going to have a profound effect. It's going to make the Great Depression probably look like a day at the beach, night at the opera, day at the races, night at the opera. Maybe that's the goal. The AI thing is haunting. And the current article in The Atlantic, I advise you to read it. It's really interesting. And the fact they can't even predict. And at the end of that, right, is the idea of companies just investing in AI because they're afraid of the same thing Rose Ott was afraid of. Now, somebody asked me a question. I know you threw a bunch of stuff at us. And I said, Alan Moyle exists as a director. And he wrote and so on and so forth. His image was based on music, and he actually, in an interview I watched, he said a lot of it had to do with McCabe and Miss Miller, how the fact that you can have the music and really based scene beats off of that, which that makes sense. I mean, there's some great needle drops, great pacings in films, even with soundtracks, not even songs separate from the movie that existed. Now, Alan Moyle films the trifecta. And why I say he's level up from John Hughes, and kind of looked at not in the same light, which is weird. John Hughes, like the claim is The Breakfast Club. And that does explore things, kind of. Right? There's some still problematic shit with the work, looking back in hindsight. But it is what it is. It's not necessarily bad. I didn't like the ending of fucking Pretty in Pink. That was a big pile of shit. And I can understand a retort about Ducky, get that. But Alan Moyle addressed the shit about, hey, my parents telling me I have mental health issues. My parents have me in the perfect machine. That I'm about to break the fuck down and maybe commit suicide because there's so much pressure on me to succeed. Oh, I am gay and I'm not into this whole idea. My parents hate me for it. I can't even do that. If anything, I'm being bullied and tortured. All this is, I am bulimic. I'm fucking have taken on tons of pills in order to keep my weight down because the only way society, all in his movies. All these topics, all these subject matters are in his movies. Right? Obviously, I'm quoting characters. Paraphrasing, actually. It's summed up a bunch of things. So, I pointed out that there was a movie called Times Square. And then there's a good jump to Pump the Volume. Pump the Volume is probably lighter now, but I don't know if they would get away with a lot of the shit they did in that movie now. But there's a lot being said. And it's interesting because a lot of people say prior to the rest of the country having standardized testing, which is at that time was a weird thing, but it's Arizona, right? By the time I get to Arizona, yeah, it's Arizona. So we're doing standardized testing. So if you're not scoring the right thing, we need to have you off. The whole link to money with kids in school is a very strange thing, right? It's a thing though. Like your kids attend, there's money, tax money dropped to them. It's a weird thing, right? So it becomes like a weird side business rather than being schools. It's addressed in this movie. The whole premise, the whole story to the movie is about this principal doing some dirty shit and deeming who's going to be the winners and who's going to be losers based on whatever. Empire Records is about corporations taking over music stores and destroying small shops. That's a thing. Right? So when I presented these as a trifecta, like Alan Moyle's behind those things. He's the director of those films. And I implore you to watch them. And if you didn't get that from the last episode, I apologize. So I'm going to end up leading. My goal today is hopefully get this around an hour. So I'm going to cut this down for a second, get myself prepared to give you the B blocks. I'm doing these both back to back today. The B block. So this whole episode is, I'm not sure if I wanted to call it loserdom or losership. And again, I'm going to reiterate, they might both be shitty. How about just fucking troglodyte? Like just reclaiming the word and saying, fuck you, this norm is not my norm, this is you. Right? And I decided to do the Alan Moyle thing because I want to lead into this. Because it kind of hints to that. Right? So, at one point in time, I'm going to tell you how fucked up the world I grew up in was. You were classified a loser if you didn't sell dope. Or you didn't do some like barbaric, fucked up shit all the time. And what's weird is the society kind of egged you on. And if your principles change, if knowledge and your ignorance gets removed because you learn something or you develop a rapport with somebody and you realize that's some fucked up shit, right? And instead of cognitive dissonance, where you're going, no, I still need to be racist, still be sexist or classist or like not hate on you, right? For whatever fucking weird, because I understand, millennials are built in the bubble. They don't have the same mechanics. This is Gen X now. This is currently what they're kind of marketing to us is anywhere from 65 to 80, arguably up to 85. I would say Generation X, in my thing, I will say episode 1 and 2 talks about this, and I'm going to summarize at the end of the season, is from 74, 76 bridge to about 84, 86. The generation before that is, I classify as W. Why? Oh, because it's alphabet? No. Watergate and the rise and fall of Woodstock Nation define that generation. Right? They're the first ones to watch school budgets get cut and shit starting to downgrade. And weirdly enough, it's under Nixon. So, like, they have the weird conservative suburb, especially if they're the suburbs. And what mom wants to leave dad. And, like, there's a lot of weird shit going on. And it's separate from the generation later on. The part that still said, oh, this is all Generation X. Kind of. Right? Because all I seen was poverty. Shit getting really worse and worse and worse, and people getting laid off, and shit just falling the fuck apart. And nobody wanting to cause it. So when the idea of corporatists come into my head, reading a bunch of things, understanding a bunch of things, and watching behaviors, I'm going, this makes sense now. Because you're all getting paid through campaign donations and post-museum libraries and speaking engagements and jobs. So you're all on the take. And this started in like the late 70s, right? Officially. It was doing it before, but like really like legalized, right? So the idea of loserdom is this concept that in the society, they decide for you, well, you don't like the football, right? Or you're not going to play sports, but you really understand a lot about this math. Well, maybe that'll work out for you, right? And you'll trek along that way. Here's what's weird. You're not getting this similar rewards unless you're doing something to make the tech industry go, oh, that's interesting. Let's say you're really good at deciphering things. Let's say you're really good intellectually charged by language. The arts. Oh, no. That's you're going right to hell for that. Right? Acting. What the fuck? Wait, you want to be an environmentalist? These are careers that kind of like get classified a specific way. And let's say you don't really know what you want to do. Why? Because the school system you went to is all jacked up and fucked up. And they kind of only like the pretty privilege or the people that hit hard in the pecking order. Because earlier on, right before you had a situation, I mean, there's been fights I've seen as a kid or been in as a kid where it didn't matter if the other person touched you. Like they hit you first and you fucking tool them, pretty privilege. Or this person's, from a better family. Or I've seen this a lot, more than I would like to. So the balance is never, it's like the industry decides to put their finger on the structure, the scale. Now it's like the millennials, it's like, oh, you too far? It doesn't matter, both of you suspended. Or like in-house, or what? What are you talking? This dude hit me with a brick. Doesn't matter. It's all the same. And that's where the gray area comes in, right? And I'm going to sound old for this because I know what it was like before, and I know what it was like after. I didn't understand it after. Even when I was younger, I was like, what? There's a 10th place ribbon? Really? That's the thing? And this will make me sound like weirdly conservative, because conservatives jumped on that as a cultural thing. But there's a price to pay for that. Now, if you're an artist and because you're talented, you're now sticking out, and because the person is being placed on a pedestal and decides, anybody around me, I'm going to charge me. See, what's weird is bullies are strange things. I never understood them. Because once they get the shit kicked out of them, which I've seen a lot of, right? It doesn't matter. They're still going to be put up on that pedestal. Actually, if anything, they might get a teacher or somebody else stepping in to make sure that doesn't happen. Or like whatever. Like other people might pressure because the pecking is already established. When you bow to the king. No. Then what's weird is if you become independent, right? And I'm going to do 2 parts of an episode for this. And that's probably what's at the end of this season. If you become independent and you decide to do things separately, you develop a pattern. Here's what's weird. The illusion in the power structure, which is still pyramid-based in the school system, ends. And what's weird is when you first go to college, you're still thinking it's continuing. And they still think it's continuing. And all of a sudden, it doesn't. Because it becomes a different beast. Because now, you're going to actually fucking study and do work. Yeah. So it literally comes down to grit. And the ones that were handed the bag of the grit don't necessarily realize what it is. So they gave it away. They used their power plays constantly, not realizing they kind of give it away. Now there's exceptions to this, because sometimes mom and dad will pay the whole pathway through. That is a thing. And that is what we're dealing with right now. Sons that will pay to go to these pedigree schools. Now in power. That's the thing. So the thing earlier on that kind of helped you clear this fog was accepting all their random statements and really kind of thinking about them critically. This is the acceptance of whatever classification. I'm using loser as a standard thing because once I started realizing, like sussing the information out from kids and realizing that essentially their structure, internal structure, is already a priority list that was ingrained in them, either from other kids, from their parents, which is even more questionable, or from what they glean the world to be. At that point, their worldview is their trap. And they're holding you to that standard, which is equally as fucked up, because when you add for clarification, they eventually hit walls and get upset with you. And that's when you get into the arguments, that's when you get into the fistfights, right? But that's a thing. So I realized that the power is they're rejecting you. Right? That's a thing. Yeah, I'm not going to be the local dope dealer. Sorry. Just not, cost ratio is not working out for me. Right? And that's the thing. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be your knight in shining armor every 5 seconds when you do crazy shit. Not going to happen. I can only back you, dude, when I realize something's up. Right? I'm going to help you out if it's going in the right direction. And what happens is there's decisions you stop making. But here's the thing you have to do beforehand. Accept the fact that they're never going to accept you. And this can go as far to parents. And the reason why is because that gives you almost a level of freedom. Like the expectations are so lowered that your interests can now be recalibrated. If that makes any sense. So now the things that you love and want to do in life and find interest in the life you want to live, you now can live because you're no longer obligated to maintain whatever the fuck they want to maintain. And that gets even better as soon as you leave that temple of bullshit. The first 12 years of school. But here's the important thing. There are mechanisms in school that actually teach you things. And it is structure. And even though you're in there doing, I know towards the end you feel like you're doing a bid, but you're in there, they're teaching you to get up at certain times, to spend some time doing this, spend some time doing that, spend some time doing this. And over a long enough period of time, you will get really good at this. And doing it probably for money. There is some interesting documents, especially if you fall into the arts thing, right? Musicians. I would advise you to watch all the documentaries on music and art on Tubi. It's free. Because they're essentially breaking down what you can do with your life. And in the structure of things, you can have an interesting life. The grind you have and you can design is yours, of your making. Here's the problem. Is it isolating? Yes, it is. And there was periods of time when I grew up that other people shared the same point of view. Well, I'm going to correct myself. I thought they shared the same point of view, right? But I realized that they just wanted other people to talk to and engage in. It was the how did they put it? Camaraderie. The idea of like interacting with each other, but not necessarily giving pieces of yourself. Just time. See this boredom thing I have right here? I don't really want to engage in it that much. Somebody's going to give you the time to kill that boredom for me. But if you want to do anything else, that sounds too much. But in this world, there's also people that say, hey, I want to do that. And then periodically, you will work with other people that want to do the same thing or have a shared point of view. Remember that overreach thing I told you back a few episodes about? I spent like it was A block. It should have been probably a B block, but it was an A block. That's what breaks that shit. Society being circus and wild as fuck for no reason breaks that shit. Here's a little side thing. Once you reduce the expectations of the people, when you realize you don't see eye to eye with the way they look at the world, that's probably the most important thing. Like, no, I don't value that at all. I don't value that at all. Well, what's wrong with you? Everybody involved. We have millions and billions. I'm glad, right? It just doesn't affect me the same way it affects you. That group of people, that circle, that event does not affect me. Like there's a period of time I worked through the weekends for many, 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 many years, right? And I don't necessarily mind doing it. And I realized that the volume of people that are out on the weekends, I forget sometimes, are massive. And the problem with it is since there's such a large mass of people out, then you're battling to try to get some of the same destinations that some of these, or even subsection of these people are trying to get to. So that creates already a weird negative undertone. When I wanted to go to movies, I wanted to go do this, I wanted to go do that, wanted to go to a show, want to go check that out, want to go hang out at the park, middle of the week, nobody's around. Or the mass amount of people don't exist. They're in their cubicles somewhere, or some office, or some garage, or like it's not there. And the hours, being able to be up for hours, and that all changed when COVID happened, right? Because now, when the growth happened, which should have been a ridiculous amount of growth, they now had bids that they hollowed out, that they're eventually going to break down. So the grind for a period of time, 2013 to maybe 18, 19, you could have done a lot of social glue build. But the problem is we weren't thinking we were in that era. And what's really weird, I'll even say that the music and the arts were there, but people were kind of isolated from them. So by reducing and realizing the worldview for the people around you and the society you're in, the family you're in, is not the same. The goal is to try to find people that have the point of view. You would think social media would be the great thing for that. No, all social media seems to be doing is making sure Nazis know Nazis and fucking people that would bad understandings of how fucking things function or hate. They support them, but any like real genuine social circle seems not to be as easily tended to. Why? Mainly because people are awkward. And when you're told for many years you're not doing the right thing, or there's something wrong with you, or something's off about you, and you know, nah, it's not. Because if I'm able to look at things and, produce stuff, and you're like, wow, this is fucking dope. I'm like, yeah, I know. I worked on that for quite some time. Or so on and so forth. Like, I want to do this. I feel passionate about, this and that. And the parents are like, we don't understand that. Yeah, that's not surprising. You can't select the parents you're born to. You can't select the friends. But even then, a lot of it comes down to you, your own internal work. In order to, it's not necessarily humbling yourself. And that's why I try to tell you, like humbling yourself is like my ego got too out of pocket, too fucking crazy, and now I gotta reduce it down to the bare core. Now I'm a fucking addict, like a lot of addicts end up being fucking profoundly narcissistic and egotistical, right? Because that's just how they learn to survive. That's how they learn to hustle to get the dope, right? So breaking that down, it's not necessarily that. It's stopping you from thinking there's something wrong with you. Because that's the thing. There's a great line from the Alan Moyle film. Was it feeling fucked up in a fucked up time for the place doesn't exactly make you feel fucked up. I'm paraphrasing. That's true. I grew up in an area that was just fucking hard. And people still grow there. And it's slowly being sold out. Because the goal for that city was to have it reduce itself and eat itself. Because everyone went into it, never really wanted to fix it. They just wanted to maintain, kick the can down the road. And I think once you understand that and reduce that and zero out your internal scale, you are giving yourself the understanding of freedom. Then you can choose what direction I want to go in. And the important thing is go with the direction you have a passion in. And I sound like a fucking terrible guidance counselor, but it's the fucking truth. Right? Because the thing you're interested in and good in that and passionate about, you want excelling at and going beyond. That is a thing. And then pick up skills here and there. Learn how to do this, learn how to do that, learn how to cook, so on and so forth. So I'm going to leave you with this. It's roughly about an hour. I decided to cover this because this happened to me at some point. And this happened to quite a few of my friends at one point. And I realized that we were in a very special area with each other. I want to say at the max, we flash flooded areas with 30 people, sometimes more. But the average was anywhere from 7 to 12, all the time. And I realized, I kept saying to them, they're changing things. Things are changing. I would point these things out to them. And they couldn't see them. Or if they did, they were like, yeah, well, what does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but if this changes, then this will be the next thing. Not sure why. I even tried warning them that the glue were breaking. Because what happened is what Ian MacKaye called the adult crash. Thus explaining why I called the novel Adult Crash. Hope it's not the first, hope it's not the last. We're all heading for the adult crash, right? Could be wrong with that, but I'm pretty sure that's the lyric. And The dog crash is when you freak the fuck out and start acting like your fucking parents, no matter how fucked up your parents were. You freak out and grab onto the pillow that is safe, that you perceive to be safe because of financial reasons. You stop doing the things you love. And you develop another personality. I've watched people do this. I had to leave because a lot of tragic shit happened. And one of the people said to me years later, they said, I says, how did you listen to Rage Against the Machine for so many years and still think the way you think right now? Yeah, the weird Republican, right? And the person said to me quietly when they were reflecting on it, said, well, you left. I says, it's not my job to do your thinking for you. You were already thinking that way. What the fuck happened? And a lot of people listen to Rage Against the Machine and find themselves arguing with friends like they're too woke. It is strange. Even the statement too woke. Why the fuck wouldn't you want to be awake? Accept the cast you put into. They think you're a piece of shit. They think something's wrong with you. Accept it. Move on. Because it's essentially saying to you whether you conform to our bullshit or not. And you decide not to. That is your power. And then find the things you love and do them. That's what the idea of losership is. Again, there's a lot of dope ass. Even the Mad Magazine thing is kind of cool. And that's my suggestions. So I guess we're out of the B block into the C block. That's my suggestion. Check that out. Beautiful Losers is pretty good too. I'd seen posters for it, but I'd never actually seen it. And I come in talking about Gummo and kids. And a little side thing. Full Complosion released the kids' music from the movie Kids. So For the Kids, I think it's called. So it's all the songs from that movie. If you haven't seen that movie, I advise you to see it. Because if you were curious at how that generation and my generation kind of lived, and we seem so barbaric when it comes to certain things and just the way we are, almost like feral. I kind of agree with that statement. They took all our parents away. They took a lot of things from us, and we had to fucking adapt. That's how it was. And then we ended up roaming the streets, finding places to go. And that was the thing. Or caretaking for a parent, which ended up becoming weirdly my thing. So check that out. Folk Implosions, I think Music for the Kids is the current release. It was originally most of it was on the Kids soundtrack. The Kids came out in 1995. And Gummo was the follow-up movie for the writer. I think he directed it too. So that's a fucked up movie. I think Chloe Sevigny's in both. But again, I really prefer cinema like that. I prefer films that are fucked up and dissective. We're giving you a bunch of great horror movies. I can honestly say, yeah, some of them are kind of dope, but I don't know. I really want more rooty, earthy fucking films. Give me sloppy shit and just put it together. Just have the fucking passion for it. Give me the fucking painting. Give me the indie comics. Give me the fucking zines. Right? Give me the fucking, shit. If you have to give me a mixtape, even on 8 cassettes, give me a mixtape. Right? Why? Because the one thing about punk rock tells you, if you can persevere over all the shit given to you and handed to you and crammed down your fucking throat, and you spit it out and do it in a long enough timeline, you will be somebody else's hero. That's it for episode 10. I will be seeing you for episode 11 in a couple weeks. Take it slow. Bye.